Welcome back to a brand new episode of TVGP. I'm your host, Boston. Joining me as always is Moonpear.
Hi, did you almost say we roguelike it
Nope,
then?
not at
By any
all.
chance?
And the Imp.
Hello.
We're here part 2 of our 2-part Game of the Year celebration episodes while we're taking a well-deserved break here. So last week we talked about some of the categories like Alpha Protocol, Best Old Game, revisited our top 10 from years past, and by that I mean just last year's, and had some opinions about our own choices from last year. So with this, this week we're going to get into the TVGP Community Game of the Year, voted on by you, the community members. Thank you very much, everyone, for voting on the link in the Discord server. Greatly appreciate it. And talk a little bit about how'd your list go this year. Was it easy? Was it difficult? Was it just did it fly out of your fingers?
As Abby Russell says, it's always easy.
It's easy. We're going to talk about our honorable mentions, 10 max. Be surprised if any of us reached that 10, even though we tried to play as much as we could this year. And then we'll talk about our the top 10 list itself. We're going to have a little bit of a change here this year. We might as well talk about it now. We're going to talk about each game in the highest position it reaches on the list. In past years, if we had a lot of similar games on our list, each of us would kind of have our time on the floor, so to speak. But this year we're going to try something a little bit new. So if someone has something at number 8 and someone else has that same game at number 4, we're talking about it at number 4. So some of these might be pretty quick, but that's okay. We'll talk about all of these games. And then at the end, we'll talk about kind of a wrap-up and thanks here, if anyone wants to. Do want to mention here, especially if this is the first time you've listened to this show, or this episode specifically, we haven't seen each other's lists. So these are just complete. No one has turned in their homework to me or whatever. These games typically, I'll get to that in a minute, we talk about games that came out from December 2023 to December 2024. So if you're listening to this and saying oh my god, it came out on December 5th and it doesn't make their top 10 list and they loved it, it will probably be in next year's list because of how we record this.
And we've also always had the rule where generally it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that was my next point of I don't impose on either of these guys or myself any firm list. It can't be it had to have come out this year, and it can't be a remake or a remaster, and it can't be and there's no DLC. I don't care. If you want to put a game from 1987 on your list this year, you can totally do that. You want to have a top 7 list this year? You can totally do that. You got one game on here, and it's that's the only one for this list. That's great too. It'll be a much shorter episode, but that's fine. It's there isn't any the cracking open the grimoire once a year and saying and lo, the rules are. It doesn't matter. Especially as we continue to get older and have less time, the necessity for having hardcore rules sort of goes by the wayside. So
I think the rule of thumb, the easiest way to describe it is, it's the games we played this year.
Yeah, and games we liked, games we recommend, games we love, that sort of thing. We also try not to spoil anything in our list. If any spoilers are going to come up, we'll mention it before it happens, but that's not really usually the point here. And one last note here, this isn't a comprehensive list of the best of the year. It's just what we love the most. So your favorite game is probably not going to be on one of our lists. We might not even talk about it because all three of us probably didn't play it. And that's okay. This is just what
I'm sorry. I know college football came out again this year, but none of us played it.
That's right. All right, so let's get started here with the TVGP Community Game of the Year. If you didn't go vote for this, you should have seen this list. This list took me forever to make. It's huge. My gosh. So, top 3. Number 3, Metaphor ReFantasio. Congratulations for an RPG showing up on the list. Also, number 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which
Cool.
seems to be higher than I was expecting. And
Yeah.
number 1, with a bullet on a card, maybe, Balatro. So that one had an early and easy lead. That wasn't too surprising,
Did
especially
it
with
smoke him? Like, did
especially
it
with
literally
everybody
smoke him
in
all?
the general chat just saying I voted for it's Balatro. That was my vote. It's Balatro. It's like, okay. Respect it. Let's talk a little bit about how our list was this year before we kind of get into the meat of it. Moon, why don't you start us off? How was it crafting your honorable mentions and top 10 lists this year?
It was both difficult and easy at the same time. It was a little easier this year because I've done a much better job of keeping track of what I played this year.
Oh, sure.
As soon as I looked at what I've been playing this year, I was like, well, that's number one. Like, like, in my heart of hearts, that's number one. I don't care.
Right.
Like, that part was easier. The hard part was playing games that came out this year. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Because lack of finances, lack of time, lack of resources, just all of that stuff. It's just like.
Also, last year being really good and catching up on those games.
I mean, yeah, I still haven't played Alan Wake 2. I'm a
Right.
giant Remedy fan, and I haven't played one of their biggest releases ever.
Yeah.
That should tell you how constrained I am in my ability to play right now.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It was easier to put the list together. I'm still 50-50 on the order of some of these.
Mm-hmm.
But it's there's a bunch in here that are not this year games, and it's just that is the way it is.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
I didn't play this year's games. I still haven't played last year's games. Like I said, Alan Wake 2. I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom.
Right.
There's so many games that I'm aware of. I just haven't played them because I just don't have the time. Yeah. And there's some that I'd love to play, especially co-op. But I get one night every 2 weeks to play co-op. It feels like at this moment, and that's currently taken with one of my entries.
Right.
You know. I don't know.
Nimp, how did your list crafting go this year?
My list wasn't too difficult to throw together. It was mostly the order for me.
Mm-hmm.
I had, even up to today, there's been a couple of games that I've moved around a couple of times now. I think my number one has stayed consistent since I've played it. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Okay. Because that's what we got this list for.
That's right. That's right. My list was actually pretty easy this year. I think the hardest part was how many games didn't make my list. Of just they kept slipping to number 11 and be like, oh no, that should be on the list. And okay, can I fit it somewhere? Oh no, I really can't. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. It's so good though. I played more games from 2024 than I was expecting. And so many of them are so good this year. And just the number of things that are on my honorable mention is just oh man, okay, yikes, that one hurts. So my number one was set in stone once I put the list together, and I kind of, I was telling Moon about this earlier, that I kind of tossed a top 10 list together and scooted stuff around a little bit and went to bed and woke up this morning. It's that was pretty close. I'm gonna scoot some stuff around, and I'm largely happy with where my list is. But we'll revisit the list in another year and see if I'm happy in 12 months' time. But as of right now, I'm pretty happy. All right, so let's get into the honorable mentions themselves. I'm going to start with you, Nimp. Why don't you just run through your whole list here, and we'll go around the horn.
All right, I've got, for my first one, Shin Megami Tensei 5.
Mm-hmm.
Just never got around to it.
Yep.
The first Descendants, Pacific Drive. Pacific Drive, I would love to get back to. Just haven't had time. Disgaea 7, which was technically a last year game, but I didn't start playing it until this year.
Oh, sure.
And The Legend of Nayuta was another one that
Right.
I came out this year. I enjoyed playing, but just there was too much competition this year.
It just didn't make the list. Yeah,
If Disgaea didn't make the list, Nayuta was not going
that's
to
right.
make the list.
That's right.
Yep.
Moon, what are your honorable mentions?
I got 3.
Okay.
I got Thirsty Suitors, which is a
Mhm.
game that I genuinely really liked. I just don't love it.
Did that come out this year?
It's late 2013.
Oh, okay.
Not
Gotcha.
2013, late 2023.
Okay. I couldn't
but we
remember
played
because
it
like
for-
there's only been 70,000 games that came out this year, so
Yeah, we
Can't
played
keep
it for Game Club this year.
yeah.
Lethal Company. I
Yeah.
have to put this in here because somehow I'm still playing that game. Again, it's still early access,
Yeah, that's
by the
true.
way, folks.
It's at like version
Go-
0.16.
Yeah, go listen to last week's episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or next week's episode, whatever episode. Time is wibbly wobbly.
Yeah.
And my final honorable mention is Pacific Drive.
Yeah.
I wanted to put it on my top 10. I really did, but I don't feel like I've made enough progress in that game to put it on my top 10. And in all honesty, and I mentioned this to Boston, I don't want it on my top 10 because I don't want to come back next year and be like, that should be number 1. I'd rather put it on my top 10 list next year
Right.
when I actually get around to finishing it, kind of thing.
Right. I have 7 games. Number 1 is Botany Manor. We played this for Game Club this year, and I liked this game quite a bit, but it's good, but kind of just missed the list because I think that game has a lot of interesting ideas, but not necessarily. It doesn't all come together well enough, I think, to have it make the list. Halls of Torment. Moon and I played that on We Rogue Like It this year. We just wrapped that here in December. Again, this is another game that's really, really great. It really clicked with me. Just didn't have enough room on my top 10 for it. I also have Pacific Drive on my list. Not because it gives me, like, it makes me dizzy playing it. It's just, I really like Pacific Drive, and it has impeccable vibes, and it plays really well. It's like one of the few crafting games I really love playing. It just couldn't crack that list for a whole bunch of different reasons, and I love it. But it's this wonderful, flawed gem of a game that I really love, and it has stuff going on. So, not
Honestly, I expected that to be in your 10. I did. I really did.
You know what? I thought so too, because I really love that game, and it just kept slipping down the list until it kind of fell off. Helldivers 2. You probably don't need anyone else to tell you about Helldivers 2 if it's not on their list, but I like that game a lot, and it just didn't have the staying power, and it didn't click with me as much as it did with other people. Rusty's Retirement. That's that bottom of the screen PC game where the robots are running the farm. Probably one of my most played games this year, but played is kind of in quotes because you're not interacting with it consistently. That game is really great, and I think it has kind of kickstarted this little people at the bottom of your screen genre starting to blow up here. So I think that's going to be a kind of subgenre you see getting a little bit bigger here in 2025. Castaway, that was that kind of bite-sized Link's Awakening game that came out on PC that was like a 3-dungeon kind of prologue and then that big challenging tower. That game's really great. I feel like I'm one of the few people that liked that game because I feel like I met it on its own merits, but it just can't fit on my list this year. And then Clickholding. This was the game that was like you should be on the list. If I had a top 11, you would have been on there somewhere. I just can't fit it in my list anywhere, and that really kind of breaks my heart, but it's such a good game. And again, please go play it. But click holding is really great. Okay, that means we are here at the top 10. We're ready to start here. As we always do, we're going to go in reverse order. So, Nimp, why don't you start us off with your number 10?
I have Unicorn Overlord.
Yeah.
Did anybody else put this on their list?
Nope.
Okay.
That would have been on my honorable mentions. I forgot that.
So, the reason why this is number 10, and this one I had to struggle with for a while, it's just because of that stupid final boss.
Right.
And I'm just going to talk negative on that for a bit. I was playing on normal, had no issues playing the game all the way up to that boss, and then all of a sudden, it just turned into an issue. It was doing things that there hasn't been any kind of checks like this throughout this game. There wasn't any indication, because it even tells you, hey, you should be level 45 for this fight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like level 50 now. Still couldn't even do anything in that fight. So that sucks.
Yeah.
And it almost didn't end up on my list because of that. Outside of that, though, the story's kind of meh.
Mm-hmm.
It's your average, hey, we have this prince whose parents were killed when he was young. We have to hide him. And then shenanigans happen. He comes back. He wants the throne. And you're helping him along for it. It's fine. It's just a thing to get you from point A to point B.
Right.
Where it really shines are the units that you get to make and the squads you get to create for these battles. And the artwork for each individual squad member is fantastic. I mean, it's a vanillaware game. They do really good art.
Do good art and incredible looking food.
Yes. The combat is really enjoyable, especially when you're modifying and messing with your units to make better units, so that way you can take on different tasks, have different abilities, even have like a backup squad if needed. Overall, it was a fun quasi-tactics game to play.
Yeah.
But just that final boss prevented it from getting any higher than 10.
Yeah.
So.
Moon, what is your number 10?
My number 10, I was expecting to be higher on other people's lists, but I guess it's not at this point. It's Halls of Torment. It's the final Wii roguelike of the year, recency bias, blah 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 blah. It is a game that should not connect with me because I have no connection with Diablo at all. It's just designed to a T perfectly for everything I like about roguelikes. Go listen to We Roguelike It and listen to the conversation on the Square Grid. We had 4 episodes of the Square Grid, and all hail the Square Grid.
I love you, Square Grid.
It's exactly what you think it is, Nim, based on the name alone.
Yep.
I heard you guys talk about it, but believe it or not, I do listen to We Roguelike It.
Oh, thanks so much. WeRoguelikeIt.com.
I don't believe that at all.
I do not. I am not interested in playing most of the games you guys are talking about,
Right.
but I enjoy listening to you two struggle every once in a while.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, also known as every week.
That's right.
I know it's a great game. It's fun to play. It looks fine. The music is good. It has the thing that most bullet heaven games are missing, where it does both the auto fire and the auto aim, or you can control both, which is just sometimes that is the thing that bothers me the most in one of those types of games. It's just like, no, you're supposed to shoot this guy. He's the boss, not this slime right next to you.
Right.
So being able to aim is absolutely a game changer in that kind of genre, and I really like Halls of Torment. I do. It's a fantastic game. That is my number 10. Boston.
My number 10 is something that's probably on Moon's list, Life is Strange Double Exposure.
Nope.
Okay.
Off a cliff, dude.
Yeah.
Off a cliff.
This is probably the hardest one. I had a hard time placing some of these games in their spots on my list. Double Exposure is the one that I had the hardest time putting on the list overall.
Honestly, I struggled with deciding whether or not it should be an honorable mention for me. But I think...
Yeah. Look, I love all of the Life is Strange games, yes, even Life is Strange 2. Um, Double Exposure is the roughest of all of them, which is made even more striking after coming after the best of them, which is True Colors. True Colors is easily the high watermark of the entire series. It is.
I mean, like, can we say it's the roughest of all of them, based solely on the fact that it had such a glorious start as well?
Yeah, that was gonna be my next point. Is like Double Exposure has an incredible first half of its game. It is the return of Max Caulfield a couple of years after the events of the first game, where you're dealing with the aftermath of that largely kind of emotionally for Max, which I think is really appealing. And I think if you're going to bring Max back, which, that's still kind of a question, you want her to be dealing with what happened in the first game, because it's big. I'm still not going to spoil the ending of the first game, but it's a big thing. And I think so much of this game handles that appropriately with an interesting new cast of characters. And Moses, if I remember correctly, his name is like the outstanding best new character in this game. He's great.
Best character of the year, period.
Yeah. But as soon as you get about halfway through this game, a little bit more than halfway, this game just falls flat on its face and like knocks out half of its teeth in a way that is still really jarring and honestly surprising. And this is Deck 9 Games. They made more than half of the Life is Strange games at this point, and they made True Colors, which is an outstanding game. And for this game to just kind of lead with such a strong foot and then just falter for the second half of this game and end. I mean, we spent a long time talking about it on the Game Club this year, which turned into a spoiler cast for the entire series. The way that this game ends and kind of leads into future Life is Strange games is concerning and head scratching, I think, is kind of the thing. But at the end of the day, you're still sitting at Zen spots. You're still listening to cool indie stuff. Max is still taking pictures of birds and saying some horrible dad joke. And you're like, yeah, Max, all right, yeah, sure, yep, that was a bad dad joke. Okay. So, like, it's still Life is Strange. It just feels like a Life is Strange that kind of... It's like when someone is running downhill and they're running too fast and it's out of control, but they haven't fallen over yet. That's the back half of this game, of just like you're cartwheeling down a hill and it's nearly out of control. So this was the hardest one for me to put on my list, because flickering between honorable mentions and this, but to me, I still like the sad Life is Strange games at the end of the day, and this was still a sad Life is Strange game. So I think that helps a lot for me. So that's my number 10. Nimp, what's your number 9?
My number 9 that I know neither one of you played is Renatus.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't even not just not play it. I also don't know what you're talking about.
Don't remember it. So Renatus is the game where you play in Shibuya present day, and you play between two characters, one who is opposing to basically authority and police, and the other one who is a part of police. It's the whole thing with, like, wizards are free roaming people who use magic whenever they want, and the police are trying to tap that down because they don't want the general public to be aware that magic is a thing that exists, even though they all pretty much already know that it exists.
Mm-hmm.
So the story itself was pretty meh. Not anything to really write home about. Once you get to the end of the game as well, fighting enemies with barriers sucked hard There's only specific skill sets that you can use to break those barriers so you can start doing damage to enemies. The amount of time that those barriers are down for is not very long. And waiting for those skills to be usable again so that way you can break the barrier and do damage again is just a pain. Anytime they started popping up in a fight, unless it was a boss fight, I just avoided them because it just wasn't worth the hassle.
Right.
And then the text messaging system in the game where your characters would text message each other in between story beats. After a while, you would get so many of those that it's like, I don't care what you're talking about. And you would kind of lose track on who was even talking after a little bit because it would change perspective. Even though you're on whatever main character's phone, the text would be sent from the perspective of either the sender or the receiver. So it wouldn't necessarily be your MC. So it would take a minute to read a couple of them and be like, oh, this is that character. It's not this character kind of thing. And then towards the end of the game, we just started getting that general RPG filler. But the reason it is on my list, and especially at number 9, is because I liked the suppressed and liberation modes. I liked the fact that you were running around in modern-day Shibuya and you were trying to hide, or at least make it so that way the public didn't see you using magic, because if the public saw you, they would start taking pictures, they would start posting it on social media, and then you would start getting a wanted level and the cops would start coming after you, assuming you weren't playing as the authority. So that was a kind of cool thing that they had in there. I also liked the fact that as you were completing quests, you were clearing up miasma, and you would find these cool graffiti all over Shibuya that you could interact with, and that would unlock pins for your characters. And these would be like passive or active skills, or just it would give you money or experience as you found them. And they would start to show up as you cleared more of the miasma out of the town. So it always gave you a reason to kind of pay attention and look around places that you've already ran through, like your 20th hour of gameplay. And you're like, oh, hey, there's this giant thing over here that's going to increase my skill level for this passive that I have that I wouldn't have seen if I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, I had a ton of fun playing it. It was kind of on the weaker side, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, Reynatus, I can't fully recommend it, but I had fun.
Right. Moon, what is your number 9?
This one I'm pretty sure is in somebody else's list. It's Balatro.
I have that higher on my list.
Take it away, Boston.
All right, my number 9 is Caravan Sandwich. I'm talking about a vibes-based game here. This is the kind of desert RV bopping around fixing stuff game. Not a ton to talk about here in this game because I think mechanically it's pretty straightforward. A lot of it is like connect this thing to this thing and it powers on and you grabbed a thing, now you're completing a quest. But so much of it is just there's something to be said about a game knowing its art style and kind of matching that to soundtrack and matching it to writing and things like that. And also just knowing you're going to be in this vehicle. It needs to be fun and interesting to drive. And throughout the entirety of my time with the game, which is like 20 or 25 hours, I was still looking forward to going out and driving that thing. You could do some fast travel stuff, but like I was still looking forward to taking that guy out and just hitting the sand dunes and solving some puzzles and, you know, kind of doing some light Metroidvania stuff of, oh, I got this new piece, do a tutorial, and now I can open up a bunch of stuff in these ruins that I found that I didn't know how to open these doors before. So it's pretty straightforward, but it's just one of those games that aesthetically is really pleasing, and gameplay-wise, they did just enough, and they told an interesting story and just didn't overstay its welcome. And I think that's a very high selling point here. Nymph, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
My number 8 is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Look at that.
I'll let you go first.
Yeah. Oh boy. So I'm kind of running with a theme here where I'm trying to get the bad out of the way at the start, and then I come in with the positive.
Right.
So the bad. They made a lot of odd and, in my opinion, bad choices with this game.
Mm-hmm.
tons of things. Everyone was talking about how, the middle of Final Fantasy VII, there wasn't really anything that happened in the original. And it's like, no, there's quite a few things that happened in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
Granted, it was spread out, but
sure. But the number of
there's a lot
stuff in this game that I'm like, that didn't happen in the original. You look it up and you're like, oh no, it did. Okay,
yeah,
sure.
But the number of things that they left out in this game, like, hey, we don't. One, we're missing a secret boss, lost number. Two, we don't go to Rocket Town, which is where this would have happened. That's where we would have met Sid for the first time.
Right.
They took out chocobo breeding, which I still don't understand, because in a game that they made minigame central, that would have been prime minigame to have in this game.
And the chocobo racing is in this one, where you can drift chocobos.
So that's really weird. I also still say that they use Sephiroth way too much.
That's think you and I have complained about that since the beginning of the previous game, of just like, this dude is showing up all over the place.
Yeah, it's like, I think they misunderstand what makes him cool in a menace was the fact that you didn't really see him. A lot of the information you were getting were people repeating legends and things that he did in the past. You never actually met him. And from the start of Remake, the first thing you see is Sephiroth.
Is him coming from the side of the screen and giving Cloud a smooch on his cheek, like, mwah.
Yeah.
Hi, buddy.
Like,
is he the toasty guy now?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
I mean, I do want to say, though, I did really like to give a counterpoint to that, I did really like the intro of this game with the Nibelheim disaster.
Yes.
I think that's a cool way of showing Sephiroth being powerful and being like a charismatic menace.
But that's the main way everyone in the original was introduced to Sephiroth. So, I feel like they messed up the impact of Aerith towards the end of the game. I feel like they don't really do anything with the Wisps at all in this game.
That's like it reminds me a lot of the Lassie and the Fal'Cie from Final Fantasy 13, where it's like, well, I'm confused. Wait, what are you talking? Wait, what is the one? I don't care anymore.
Yeah. And then just in general, I feel like they've left so many things to be wrapped up in the third game.
Yeah.
That I feel like the third game is going to be a mess.
It's a concern, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now on to the positive, unless you have any negatives you would like to throw in.
I think you covered them.
Okay. Game looks gorgeous.
Yes.
Like, 100%. I love how much time and effort they've put into the graphics. I love the remix of the original soundtrack and the new music that they have in this game.
300 songs for this game or something bonkers. Like, in incredible, not only like remixes, but like reimaginings of the original. We talked about it pretty early on when we talked about it on the show, of like, each area has 4 different versions of its overworld theme of like, are you fighting? Are you doing this? Are you fighting a boss? Or are you just wandering around? Like,
and the way that they
cool
flow
stuff
into each other, where it's like, okay, you've got overworld music, and then now you're fighting, and then it starts to ramp up into the fighting version of that music, and then it ramps back down. They do a really good job with the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to the game looking great. I love seeing places in 3D.
Yes.
Walking around Calm for the first time and seeing it as an actual castle town.
Yep.
Seeing the weapons, enemies, characters, vehicles, all in 3D. Junon was basically a museum piece of just walking around.
Junon, you're walking around and you look up and you can see the giant cannon there, like looming out over the entire city. It's like, dang, okay, I don't think I put it together in the original.
How massive it is?
Yeah, like how massive it is, and where you can see it everywhere.
Well, even when you come up on the elevator and then the high wind is right there, and you're like, that thing is huge. And then you're just sitting there walking around it, looking at it. Oh, this is great.
Very cool.
And then I also love seeing that, Vincent and Sid, like, Vincent looks fantastic.
He looks great.
He pulls off edgelord really well.
Great voice acting for him, too.
Yeah. Sid, I wish, was a little more foul-mouthed, but I understand why they're pulling him back, because he is, nowadays, he's kind of a problem. But
Right. Yeah.
we're gonna see how it turns out in the third installment of this
Right.
game too. But yeah, if it wasn't for this other weird stuff with the story, because I like how they're changing the story. I think I said it when we were talking about remake.
Hmm.
I like that it's slightly different. I like that we're having these changes. I like how we have these, like, this third party with the Wisps, and we're not sure what they're doing, but it seems like they're trying to keep everything back to the original story.
Hmm.
And it's like we're getting all this extra stuff, and it seems really cool, but it's just a lot of it. Why do we have so many mini games? Why is everything a mini game in this game?
Yeah, because one of the big reasons why I had a hard time putting this game on my list, I knew it was going to be on my list, but trying to figure out a place for it to be is it's so uneven. When it hits the high points, game of the year, best, I had an incredible boss battle, this is the best, like, Final Fantasy VII's back, baby, woo! And then when it hits the low points, it's just like, oh, God. Like, how many things do I need to do? Like, I think it was like chapter 12 or 13 where I'm like just trying to wrap the game up and it's like, here's another big mini game. It's like, no, stop it. Like, I just, you can't do this. It has one of the worst dungeons in an RPG that I can think of in Kate Sith's dungeon. It's just a miserable
throwing mechanics sucks.
A miserable slog of a dungeon. But it's, like you said, it's Final Fantasy VII where they're fleshing out a lot of the story. They're taking it in an interesting direction. I don't want to spoil what happens in the ending, but I'm one of the few people that actually really likes the ending of this game. But I do understand absolutely why people have concerns or problems with it.
Yeah.
But it's just a weird, uneven thing that I kind of liked playing, but I will never go back to, because after like the fourth or fifth open world area with a bunch of side quests in it, I'm like, I have to be done. Like, I can't do another thing for Chadley where Chadley's like, go find a summon. It's like, no, shut up. Like, uninstall his app. We're done. I'm here to find Sephiroth. Leave me alone, bud. So this was the one that I had the hardest time with, I think. A couple others were like, oh, is it number 4 or number 5? This one was like, is it 10? Is it 4? Is it 7? Like, I don't even know where to put it on my list.
This one moved around quite a bit too, and I even re-listened to our spoiler cast that we recorded back in April, because I'm like, the hate that I feel now, was it as strong as it was back then?
Have you soured on it over the year?
And no, the things that I mentioned that I hated now are the exact same things and the exact same reasons that I brought up when we did the spoiler cast. Like, they have it. It's right there. It's just there's a couple things where it's like, I don't get why you thought that was a good idea.
Right. Just focus, Square Enix. Just focus up a little bit.
But this is one, though, that I would recommend. Go play Remake. Go play this.
They're both great games.
Yeah, just...
You're in it for the long haul, though.
Just play the original at some point. These are not the stories.
Contrary to how they're listed, they're not remakes.
Yeah.
Moon, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is Helldivers 2.
I got it higher.
All right.
I figured it would be.
As I mentioned, my number 8 was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Nimp, what is your number 7?
Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown.
My number 7 is Prince of Persia. Look at this.
I'm gonna take a drink.
Twins. This was another one that I knew was going to be on my list, but I had sort of a hard time putting it in its spot. This is easily one of the best roguelikes. Can you tell what we just recorded? Is easily one of the best Metroidvanias of the year in a year that had a bunch of really good ones. I haven't played Nine Souls, that's why it's not on the list. But if you make a Prince of Persia Metroidvania and it's a 2D one, they nailed the thing that you need to nail, which is movement. It feels so good just to move through this game and move from one area to another and platform and swinging and air dashing and attacking enemies in the air and juggling them. Like, all of that feels so good and feels... It's one of those few games where I'm doing exactly the thing I want to do because the controls are so rock solid.
Yeah.
And that is on the combat side and that is on the puzzle side. That both of them felt so good. A lot of times when I'm dying, usually in a puzzle, it's because I'm not executing properly, not because the puzzle is unfair or broken or something like that. They're
Or you
in
just never. What was to say? Or you just never thought to use a skill in a particular way that a
exactly
puzzle is wanting you to use it in.
right.
So
Yeah, there is some stuff, optional stuff at the end of the game that is incredibly difficult from a puzzle perspective, but none of those are required. And the one where I had the room with the like spinning blades that keep crisscrossing all over the place, completing that felt really good. And I think at that point I was like, all right, that's probably the hardest thing I'm going to be able to complete in this game.
yeah.
Everything else is going to have to go unfinished.
Yeah, and I really liked the art style that they used for this.
Yes.
I felt like that really punched through with how colorful everything was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really enjoyed the story for this game. I really
Yes,
liked
shockingly.
the whole fracture of time on like this sacred mountain,
Mm-hmm.
and how you would run into people and you're like, oh hey, how's it going? I thought you just went this way, and the guy's like, dude, I haven't seen you in like 5 years.
Yeah, that was like 5 years ago I saw you.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that was great. My only con for this game is as you got towards the end, even some of the story stuff was getting a lot more technical.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't anything I couldn't get past. And there is an option. They do have an accessibility option where you can turn on a thing where a portal will open up on the more technical story related things, and it'll just warp you to the end of it. So that way you're not sitting there constantly
Oh,
dying.
I didn't know that. That's nice.
Yep.
That's cool.
I found that out once I got towards the end of it, because there was one that I was going to try, and I did manage to get through it. But my son was having issues with it, and I was talking with him. I was like, I think there's an accessibility thing, and we checked it out, and it's like, oh yeah, that works out really well. Wish I
Nice,
would have
yeah.
known about that earlier.
Also forgot to mention a lot of the bosses are really cool. Like longer kind of. There's a couple in there that are pretty technical. There's a couple that are really parry dependent in a way that I think is really cool. Like parrying a huge boss at the right exact moment felt really great every single time. The one I will always remember is parrying that giant snake boss when it strikes you at the right point and you just bash it back with your shield. Like that's the good stuff, man. Some of the bosses were okay. You can't have back-to-back bangers in each one of these, but this is a cool game. I'm hoping more people play it and check it out. It came out so early this year that I know some people have forgotten about it already because it came out like early January. You really should try it. It's not super long. It's not incredibly difficult, but it is really. We even talk about the like taking a picture of the map and pinning it on the map. Like that's an incredible.
I hope more
feature.
games use that too.
Yeah,
That is super
cool.
helpful.
Yeah,
And it's not a full price game.
true. Right.
So
right. Yeah.
Definitely not at this point. I got it on sale.
Yeah. There you go.
I found mine physical for like $25, but it's like a $35 game.
35
Is
or
it a 40?
40? Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
so-
yeah. It's reasonably priced. I think.
Yeah.
Moon, what is your number 7?
My number 7 is Little Kitty Big City.
I forgot that came out this year.
I didn't know it came out this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a year where I need blue sky,
Hmm.
like this was the balm to my burning sensation. This was the cuteness that I needed to help tamp down the hatred and pain inside of my brain, kind of thing. Name of my new album. It is an open world exploration semi-Metroidvania where you go around and you interact with a bunch of animals and do tasks. Like it's the simplest breakdown you can do.
Hmm.
And it is cute, and it is like great and blue sky, and like people take photos of you as a cat,
Right.
and you can trip people over.
Yeah.
You talk to a Hercules beetle, I think it is,
Mm-hmm.
who is on their version of Twitter with like a cat, essentially.
Yeah.
It it's dumb, it's goofy. You ride the wormholes to go to do the fast travel through
Yep.
the sewer system.
Unless your game broke and you never get wormholes.
Right.
True,
You have a
unless that
chameleon
happens.
who's a terrible magician.
Yes.
Yeah, he can't. He keeps on giving you clues about where he's hiding, and he just like can't blend in at all. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. It, it's not the best game of the year. It's not perfect. It's not ideal. But I'm a cat with a frog hat on, and I'm perfectly happy wandering around that city.
Mm-hmm.
Like
It was fun.
it was short, sweet, and fun. Like it's just
Incredible animations too. Like someone
yes.
loves cats that made those animations.
And like the mechanics of the game, like being able to preload your jump and getting those paw prints to see
Yep.
where you'd land is just like a good job. You nailed it. Like you
Yeah.
nailed exactly what you need to do to be able to make the jump and everything readable. Because like quite frequently it's like, oh, it's a platform. I'm gonna try and jump and see if I can make it. But in this case, no, you just preload it,
Yeah.
and then you can see where you're gonna land.
Yeah.
And the preloading, of course, means the cat crouches down in the ready to jump animation.
Yep.
Which is just one of the missions
So
is
good.
finding places to sleep in rays of light.
Right.
Like it's so cute and charming, and I loved it, and it's fantastic. And I don't know if it's still on Game Pass, but if it is, maybe go give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
My number 7, Little Kitty, Big City, Boston.
My number 7 was Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, as we talked about. Number 6, Nimp. What's your number 6?
Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2.
Yeah.
No, it ain't.
All right.
Moon, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is Aliens: Dark Descent.
Which, if you're listening to this when it released, it's on PS Plus right now.
And it also just came to Game Pass like this week too.
Perfect.
So
check it out.
Go give it a shot. Like, so I haven't beaten the game. It probably, honestly, if I'd beaten it, it might end up being higher on my list.
Mm-hmm.
It's on my list now because the Alien franchise is a difficult franchise to do in video game format.
Right.
It just is. What was the name of the older one? The one based on Alien?
Isolation?
Isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Everybody gave that game props. Maybe it was too long, but everyone gave that game props for like, yo, you want an Alien game? This is an Alien game.
Mm-hmm.
I would say to people, if you want an Aliens game, this is an Aliens game.
Gotcha.
Because you can, like, it's XCOM light, essentially. Everyone moves as a squad, though. Like, you don't have individual units, just everyone stays together and moves together. But, like, the game looks gorgeous. The lighting is incredible. You have to use flashlights to spot things in the environment. The sound design is intense. The box are a little repetitive, but like that's nothing too bad kind of thing. Like it's a very good audio like notification of what's going on in the map as a whole. But it gets to that feeling of, yeah, we're a bunch of badasses, and then things go south real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second things start to go south, they don't stop going south. They just get worse.
Right.
And like you get to that point where it's like, I've got a boogie from this level. I've got to leave this level because everyone is so paranoid. They're so stressed. They've got mental like blocks put on them now because it has like a stress meter. They're losing health. They've got all these kinds of issues. I need to get out of this map to get them healed and bring a different squad in. But then by doing so, you're passing time and the infestation level is increasing as you're doing it. It's this really interesting balance of getting the missions done as quickly as you possibly can versus managing the equipment, the mental health, the regular health, like of all your different squads. And like, do you go and save that android, or do you ignore the android and go and do something else and like not do the side mission because you don't have the time or the preparation to do so? And there's like resource management where like ammo is limited. You've got a certain number of like welds. So like you weld the door shut to create a safe point and like save the game, but you've only got a limited number of them that you can bring into each mission.
Interesting.
So it's this really cool balance of a whole bunch of like stuff like XCOM like base management and squad management mixed with honestly a great tone for the franchise, like a great feel for an Aliens like game instead of an Alien kind of game.
Right.
And it's got all the sound effects too. It's got the correct brat noises when you shoot the different guns. It has a flamethrower. It has motion detectors. The entire time you're in the game, it's doing the bloop click, bloop click, bloop click of the motion detectors. So like, I'm down. Like,
Yeah.
It's great. It's fantastic. I wish I could play more of it because it's like 45 minutes each time I want to sit down and do a mission in it. Essentially, I love it. Aliens Dark Descent. Go give it a shot. It's on Game Pass and PS Plus. If you have either one, give it a shot.
Yeah.
That is my number 6. Boston.
My number 6 is Mini Shoot Adventures.
No, it ain't.
Okay. Number 5. Let's talk about Nimp. You're number 5.
I know neither one of you have played this one. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink.
Yeah, I
think
to.
you'll find you are correct. I have not played this game.
So, this is just a fun Blue Sky game. The story is fine. It's another one of those where it's like it gets you from point A to point B, but it's really light and cheerful. There's a lot of happiness in this game. So if you need that right now, go check out Blue Sky. It may, Blue Fantasy. It may help you out with some stuff. But the action, this is an action RPG. Action feels great. Final Fantasy VII should take some notes on how to do action and blocking and parrying because it's really great in this game.
Right.
The story can be done solo or co-op. It doesn't even you can even do online co-op or couch co-op. The end game, once you've beaten the main story, it opens up to you get a bunch of online story stuff that you can do, and you can do this with anyone around the world. And excuse me, it's basically just quick. Hey, you need to go fight this boss. It's like, okay, fine. So we go into a boss arena. You take out this boss with your character, and if you have other people coming in, they choose their favorite character and they join you, and you guys fight. And characters all have different synergies and stuff like that. I don't fully understand them because I didn't play the mobile games, and I watched some of the anime, but the anime was mostly based off of the mobile game anyway. So whatever. All these characters were new to me. But yeah, just being able to do that, and then the whole point of this rinse and repeat process of doing stuff online is that you get these items, so that way you can unlock more characters. You can unlock better weapons. You can upgrade those weapons. You can also get better skills and upgrade those as well. Considering that this is based off of a gacha mobile game, there isn't a gacha system in it. It's just the grind. So if you're really enjoying the grind loop on this, that's all you do for like the next 70 hours of endgame, and then you just enjoy it. That's all there is to it.
Nice.
So I had a ton of time. I want to come back to this because I want to do more of the endgame stuff in this. Just haven't had time. But I really, really enjoyed the time I had with this game. So,
Moon, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is click holding.
Yeah.
Go listen to the Game Club episode on this one.
After you spend the
it is
$3.45 to play it.
Yes. Do that first, then do that, then listen to the interview we did with Zavali and Nelson Jr.
Yeah, big shout out to Zavali for taking time out of his schedule to get interviewed by us.
Yeah, not like he's busy, releasing 2 other games at the same time and planning another game to be announced later this year.
That's right.
Already announced at this point.
Right.
It is a strange, divisive, weird experience. And I absolutely adored it. Like, I took some things away from it, which might have been intentional, might not have been intentional. It doesn't really matter. Like, whether or not they were, because at the end of the day, it's what you take away from things, which is the important side of it. It is a great game. Go listen to that episode. I'm not going to break it down here because we
No.
literally did a spoiler cast on the entire thing.
I think you and I found this game more emotionally affecting than I think we were expecting it to be. Of just like, yeah, this is gonna be like a goofy, like hour-long thing, but it turned out to be had a lot more to it than expected.
Yes. Go listen to that episode. It's great.
Yep.
And yeah, it's click a link. It's great. That's my number 5. Boston.
My number 5, Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth, which also came out pretty early this year. One of the 2 like 100+ hour JRPGs I squeezed in this year. This game is really great. It takes all of the high points from Yakuza Like a Dragon, especially the new turn-based fighting system, and it just improves on all of it. The changes they made to the battle system is really great. Most notably, being able to move your characters around during their turn before you attack. That gets you some of the really great stuff of like knocking enemies into traffic or picking up a bike and smacking it over somebody's head, like the kind of Yakuza stuff you're used to. Being able to do that stuff on purpose now, as opposed to the previous one where it was really just by accident of like, oh, I was in the right spot and now I could do that. The stuff that I loved doing the most about halfway through the game was standing next to a party member and both of them attacking at the same time for free and doing, usually when it's like that, it's like, oh, you do 1,000 damage yourself and both people will do 1,050 damage together. It's like, no, you're doing more than double damage because you managed to align your party correctly.
Yeah.
I think the battle system was really great. I think this has one of the kind of weakest large mini games, because the Yakuza games always have like, here's a bunch of Mega Drive games to play, and here's Virtua Fighter 4 that we're gonna cram in here, and here's arcade stuff and UFO catchers and 50 other things. The Dondoko Island was the big sort of side thing here. There's the kind of Animal Crossing thing. I thought that was pretty okay, but I think it sort of fell apart once you finished it, because in other Yakuza games, when you finish those things, they really turn into your cash cow of, okay, I'm going to go spend half an hour at this thing, I'm going to make 400 million yen, and I'm going to go upgrade my skills, I'm going to go buy a bunch of property, I'm going to go buy equipment or stuff like that. That cash part never really got there with the island, which I think eventually you didn't really need in the game, but I like in the other games being able to spend time early on to focus on those and getting a huge payout once you're able to do that. Story-wise, I think 99% of this game is really great. I think the ending sort of suffered because it's telling 2 characters' stories at the same time, and one sort of needed to fall by the wayside, and I think Ichiban's story kind of fell by the wayside a little bit, understandably, because the other characters cure you. So, like, everybody kind of takes the backseat to that. But I think that means that I think Ichiban's very ending was good. I think some of the stuff with his main villain sort of struggled throughout most of the game, especially at the end, where you're like, come on, man, like, why are we doing this? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
So a little bit of a bummer, but I think it ended really strongly, and I think just like the ending of the previous game, I think this leaves Ichiban in a really, really solid place to kind of take the franchise for its next steps, I think. And it's really great. I played, I think, over 100 hours of this, I think, between that and the DLC that came out. And all of it was really great. I even did a bunch of grinding to go through the DLC, which was also really good. It's super great. And again, I think I completed maybe 40% of this game, you know, throughout the number of checklists and mini games and side quests and all of that stuff. Nevertheless, the curious stuff at the end of the game that I won't spoil, like just an astronomical amount of stuff in this game that is completely outstanding. So, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, that's my number 5. Nimp, what's your number 4?
All right, my number 4 is Legends of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak.
Oh, yeah.
This is a fresh break from Skies and Steel. It takes place a couple, so, all right, let's get the timeline right first.
Mm-hmm.
Sky is the first game or the first series in the longer series. Steel is kind of the middle portion. Daybreak is the furthest we've gotten along in this timeline. They all take place in the same universe, same world, same timeline. So we're back down to just, hey, we have 5 characters now instead of like 45 characters to talk with. But we do get, I know there's at least one character that pops over from Steel for a little bit, and I think there was one that came over from Sky. Yeah, there was 2 that came over from Sky, like very briefly, but they're never part of your party or anything like that. So this taking place in a country that we've never been to before, in Calvard, it only ever gets talked about. Only places we'd been to before was Erebonia and Crossbells. So this is a third country that's just off to the east of those 2. And so we have a whole new political outlook on things. We have a whole new perspective with the characters, because they reference things that happened in the past that you've played in the other games, but they aren't even entirely sure what really happened, because there is a lot of weird magic and mysticism stuff going on. So when people in Calvard talk about it, they're like, yeah, rumor says that this happened, but I mean, come on, man, like, who's seen a mech, you know, kind of thing.
That's crazy.
Who believes in magic, really? Come
right
on. So the other thing that I really like about this, number 1, you're playing as an adult. This isn't another high school or early teen romp. Granted, the dude's only 24 years old, and every person in this game has some joke about him being an old man.
Oh, of course.
Which is infuriating. The other thing that I like about this is that you aren't playing necessarily as a goody two-shoes hero. The dude, he goes by the nickname Spriggan. He does a lot of stuff with like criminals. You see a lot of like the seedy underbelly of the polished world that everyone wants to be a part of, and everyone's all happy and stuff. No, you get to see the darkness and the dark corners that you don't normally see in these kind of games. So it's cool being able to interact with that kind of stuff. It's cool that your main character has done some pretty dark things, which isn't the norm in this series.
Yeah.
So I just like the general direction they're going on. They're making it a little bit darker. They're making it more adult, but you're not losing like the whimsical blue sky-ness of it all. It's not like you're watching this dude snapping necks and shooting people in the back the entire time. You just get a hint that, hey, you know, this dude's done stuff in the past. So the only bad thing I have to say about this game is it does have the Legends of Hero stamp of, hey, there's a bunch of filler towards the end of this game.
Oh, sure.
And I don't think they'll ever get over that. That's fine. It's fine. I'll deal with it. But I am super excited for what this opened up. There's going to be a whole new trilogy for the Daybreak. In fact, Daybreak 2 is supposed to be coming out in February of 2025.
Nice.
So I'm all set for getting that. I'm super looking forward to playing it, and I hear that they start to go into some really crazy directions as this trilogy starts to go on.
Exciting.
So I'm looking forward to playing more of it. So that's all I
got. Moon, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Mini Shoot Adventures.
Yeah.
Which was your number 9?
Number 6. Just a little bit down the list, yeah.
Okay. This, for those of you, again, stop me if you see a theme here. This is a Game Club game.
Played a lot of good games on Game Club this year.
Yeah, we did, and I finished most of them. That's the important part. I actually finished most of them too.
Right.
Mini Shoot Adventures is an indie Zelda-like, except it's a bullet hell
It's like a
shooter.
twin stick shooter, bullet hell, 2D
Uh-huh.
Zelda game, but it actually really is.
So, yes. So the reason this thing ended up so high on my list is because I don't think any other game has aimed, produced, and completed itself and like released about as perfectly as this has,
Absolutely.
with like scope, size, scale, controls, look, feel, vibe checks. Everything about this is done superbly well.
And it's the perfect length too. It really doesn't overstay its
Yes.
welcome.
And then if you feel like you want a bit more of a challenge, it's got that for you at the end too.
Those challenge arenas. Sheesh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah.
They're very, very rough.
Yeah.
It's a great game. Like it genuinely is a fantastic game, and like, what was it, like $12 as well, something like that?
Yeah.
Like, it was.
And I think one of the biggest reasons we checked it out on Game Club was everybody, when it came out, everybody was like, it's a twin stick Zelda, but no, it actually is, and you should really check out this game. You've never heard of it before, and you should go play it. And I was just like, I don't know, man. And then everybody on social media was like, okay, I did check it out, and I just like sunk 6 hours into it today. It is actually that good. And I'm here to say, it's only a number 6 on my list because everything else above it is outstanding. It's really, really, really good, and it's a real bummer it's not on a console. This game would kill on the Switch.
Yeah.
It's so good, and it nails everything in this game, and it plays perfectly. It control. One of my favorite things about this game is like when you start out, you're like, oh my god, I can't even do this. Like I can't even go over gaps. Like what? This is stupid. Like what happened? And like 10 minutes later, you're like, hey man, you can go over gaps now. It's like, yes,
Yep.
perfect. And like every time,
Now I get the boost. Now I can float over water. Game changer, baby.
right? Like every time you get annoyed of something, like, ugh, man, I keep running into this water. Like, what am I doing? The game's like, hey man, in this dungeon you could go over water. It's like, yep, best game ever. Let's go. Let's do this. That's so good.
Uh-huh.
It's really great.
Yeah, Mini Shoot Adventures it's one of the most supremely well put together releases this year.
Yeah, hands down.
Yeah, that's why it is my number 4.
My number
Austin.
4 is UFO 50.
Oh, nice.
I have been looking forward to UFO 50 for a while, largely because of who has been involved in this. The Mossmouth guys, the guy that made Downwell, a bunch of other kind of notable and famous indie developers that have made things that you love in the indie space. And their idea was, when you were a kid, you got one of those like Action 52 cartridges for your NES that just had 52 games on it that a lot of them were just garbage. Let's make a collection of those where every single game is good. And every single game is going to be inspired by each other, be worked on by the same staff, have this kind of this UFO Soft fake company behind it that's making these games for kind of an imaginary platform. And let's just make 50 really good games that we just wanted to make. And I think the thing that has been really impressive is, even leading up to the release, they're like, these aren't mini games. These aren't like WarioWare micro games or anything. These are 50 full games. And they did make 50 completely full games. There's an idle game. There's a JRPG. There's Porgy is an underwater Metroidvania. There's a European board game. There's a tower defense game. You know, there's like, I don't know what Mini and Max is, but it's incredible. Like, there's 50 really, really great, well-made and well-produced games in here. Now, myself, like everybody else, there's a couple of games in there I don't like. But that doesn't mean they're bad games. It just means that, you know, not all 50 of them are gonna land for you. I was consistently surprised with UFO 50. I really loved and I know this was a sticking point for a lot of people. I really loved firing up a game, looking at the like small card of like this button jumps, this button does this thing, and this button does that thing. That's all the introduction you're getting. You're just like renting a game from Blockbuster that doesn't have a manual. Just start playing the game, figure it out. My beloved Mooncat. So much of this collection is so great. The meta game stuff is really good. That was a lot of fun, sort of hunting that stuff down. I'm not going to spoil any of that. But UFO 50 is genuinely great. I highly, highly recommend it. There's something in there for people to really love. I think it's 20 or $25. Like it's a steal. And I hope they bring it to consoles soon, because it's a very cool thing that I hope more people have a chance to play and check out. So that's my number 4. Nimp, top 3. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is Helldivers 2.
There you go.
There we go. There we go. My number 8, for those refresher lessons.
Yep. So Moon, why did you put your game, or why did you put Helldivers 2 at number 8? Why do you hate democracy?
No, why does he hate you?
It was, in all honesty, the only reason this is so low on me is because I didn't have the time to keep playing the game. Like, it got to that point in the year, because we played it, me, you, and Rob, we all played pretty frequently. And then it got to that time of the year where personal crises started to happen, and I kind of just don't have time anymore. So it became one of those things where it's like it slowly slipped backwards in the list, because it's just like, I want to go back and I want to do the landing. It's got some of my favorite music of all video games this year is the blatant Starship Troopers rip-off music when you're launching from like onto the planets. Like, I love the presentation, I love the design, I love the feel, I love the vibe. I just didn't play it enough. When I say I love the vibe, I'm saying I love the patronizing part of it, where it's making fun of the fascist,
the satire
like
vibes.
the fascist vibe.
Right.
Yes. Yep. It's a great game. It genuinely is.
I'm just gonna say, if anyone can watch the intro to this game and not feel a tingle somewhere, there's something wrong with you.
I felt my satire tingle.
It's so good.
Yeah. It's just so awesome. I even watched a guy, getting a little sidetracked. There was a producer who was basically watching the video, and he was calling out like shots and the lighting and the way the camera is set in different ways. And he's like, and this is just for a video game. This isn't even a movie.
Right.
He was really impressed by it. But primarily the thing that I love about this is a lot of the normal community and the way the devs have kind of fully embraced, like if you watch the Game Awards, how they like fully embraced just how dumb the game is and why the normal community enjoy this game. I just think it's just been the best thing that I've played in a long while for shooters. I enjoy being able to pull in the stratagems, especially when it's just nothing but chaos. You're getting shot from all sides, and you're trying to put in this very delicate 9-string input that if you screw up, you have to start all over again. And a lot of the chaos.
It has that weird thing too of like the wonderful build of tension, and then like you said, right as that tension crest is when you need the stratagems. So that's when you're like, you've got people all around you, they're closing in on you, you've got to get one person to respawn, you've got another person who's down, and it's just like, oh no, I need to start summoning things, I need to start doing all this stuff. And it's just that perfect ebb and flow of tension as on an individual level basis, where it's just like, yeah, okay, this is what we're going to do. Now things get hot, now they cool down, now they get hot, and now they cool down. So let's take that great inhale and exhale of tension as you're playing this game and screaming at your friends because they're doing something stupid like dropping a bomb on you.
Yeah, or like the best things being they didn't subscribe to normal controls and game mechanics. So like when you shoot your gun and it's fully empty, your character isn't going to reload that automatically. You have to tell your character to reload, or else you're going to be running around with an empty magazine when you need those bullets. The other thing being, when you reload, if you reload a half clip, that ammunition's gone.
Yeah.
Like you just put in a fresh clip and that half clip is gone to the ether. You're not getting that ammunition back. The fact that you could prep a stratagem for like a strike, but if you get shot and you drop it, that stratagem's active, so you better get the hell out of there. Just weird stuff that you don't see in games anymore. I've just
the first time we launched a nuke together, and like,
dude, that was the best.
We got it, launched the nuke, and it launched it off the map, so you see the mushroom cloud in the distance. But I was stood on top of a peak, and as the shockwave from the nuke hit us, it just sent me flying backwards into a cliff. Like I just ragdolled into a cliff, and I was just like, okay,
yeah, fair.
I guess valid point, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe don't stand on the crest of a ridge when the nuke's going off.
Yeah. I also wanted to point out the other things that made this a number 3 for me is the fact that the missions are varied and fun. You have free battle passes. You can pay money to get Super Earth credits, or you can just find the credits in missions and get them, and you can find enough of them. Like, I haven't bought Super Earth credits, but I've been able to keep up with the battle passes. So you don't need to spend real money on this game. I gave them an extra, I think it was $20 for the Super Citizen thing. So I can get the Stratagem arcade game in my ship. And, so because I was enjoying it so much, I'm like, yeah, here's like an extra $20. Like, I really like what you guys threw out here. And it's not a full price game. It was only like a $30 or $40 game.
Yep.
So I just had a ton of fun with it. I enjoy what the devs have done with this game. The fact that they brought back the third faction now, and I haven't been able to play it since the announcement because so many people have flooded back to Helldivers 2 that it's busted the servers again.
There you go.
And that's the other thing. This game was never meant to be this popular.
No, yeah.
So the fact that I'm talking about how the servers are broken again, like it's not me griping. It's just I'm glad they're that popular. I'm glad that it's exceeded their expectations like so far and beyond anything that they thought was possible.
Yeah.
So I've just gotten a huge kick out of this game, and I love it. So.
Moon, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Space Marine 2.
Oh, there you go.
Yay!
So, Nymph, why do you like Heretics so much?
Because I love democracy more.
That's right.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I've got like one con for this, and that is, why is this game so difficult?
No, so but here's the thing: this is a recent turnaround.
Yeah.
Like, go listen to the last regular episode of the year for that update, folks.
Yeah. Outside of that, though, I have absolute fun playing this game, especially with you and Rob. I enjoy exploring. I love how they've kept everything to scale. So it's like we saw a Titan at one point. It's like, that thing is huge. And then we saw like one of those, I don't even know what they're called, but that giant city on the back of like that giant mech looking thing.
Cool.
Yep.
And it's like, that thing is massive. Like, and then the cathedral that we were walking around, and we were all looking at like dumb stuff at different areas of the cathedral because it was so huge.
And like one of the things we missed is like there is on one of the main campaign levels, part of the level itself is built on a Titan or an Ultramarine Titan, but it's all like mossed over and grown over with trees and stuff. We just didn't notice it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love the talking. I love playing as B Squad. I love being able.
B Squad is great.
We can level up and all this stuff, and some of the little. We were talking about it last time. Some of the little jabs that they throw at each other, just having fun. I love anything to do with technology in this game, where you push some buttons and you get a response of the Psalms have been heard and your hymns have been praised, glory to the machine spirit. It's like, dude, I just loaded an executable and asked you to run it.
So good.
All hail the Omnissiah might be one of my favorite dumb phrases ever.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great game.
It looks great. It plays fantastically. Like, and it scales difficulty well. I will say that. Like, with some minor quibbles, potentially patch related aside, the fact that the game is a third-person shooter that turns into a Souls-like when you get the big enemies nearby is just, it's incredibly like convergent of like a bunch of different game types. I don't know how it looks as good as it does, but it sure looks great. The voice acting is great. The story they tell is fantastic. It carries over important parts from Space Marine 1. Doesn't have the same voice actor as Titus, which is fine because Boston, who's your favorite British guy with the shaved head who's in a whole bunch of stuff?
Mark Strong?
Underrated actor. Yes. He was Titus in the first Space Marine.
Oh, jeez. That's cool as hell. Yeah, Mark Strong.
He's not Titus in this one,
he's busy. He's busy on Arrakis. Yes. He's all right.
100%. But, like, it plays well. It feels good. The fact that the campaign is a 3-player co-op and you don't need to do it co-op or you can do it solo. And like I said, the difficulties, they scale pretty nicely throughout all of them. And then the fact that they're like, oh, hey, by the way, see these guys, they're going to go off and do a support mission. And like Nim said, you get to then play that support mission in like a PvE mode. It's just, yeah, cool. Why not, I guess. And
then we find out that B Squad had the hardest, most difficult missions compared to A Squad. It's like, all right, where was all this? Like, oh man, love the game.
All right,
great.
My number 3. Go ahead. Sorry,
I just said Boston. Take it to the 3.
My number 3 is Astrobot. Probably the game
I wish I had a PlayStation.
Yeah, like probably the game I need to least talk about on this list, I'm gonna guess. It's just a perfect platformer. It's a perfect 3D platformer that has enough variety and enough worlds and enough bonkers boss battles and some incredibly difficult optional stuff. There's one level that will live on an infamy from this game. That is a side one that is ridiculously difficult. But it's just super charming. I know a lot of people love to say like, oh, this is like the product placement video game. And it's like, yeah, maybe you should go play one of Kojima's games. But like, it really does show...
Any video game, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Alan Wake brought to you by Duracell batteries. But like, they're...
Splinter Cell brought to you by Airwaves Chewing Gum.
That's right. But like this game really does love the history of PlayStation, but it also really loves platformers. Like it knows how to make a good platformer, and it made a really outstanding, very funny, very fun, charming, creative, fun platformer. And we don't get enough of those. And it's not at number 3 on my list just because it's a 3D platformer, but because it's a really good one. And it's an incredibly solid game, and one that I am susceptible to collecting stuff in a lot of games, but I've never felt, it's been a while for me to be like, okay, I need to collect each and every one of these robots in this game because I want to see all of them, and I want to see all the wild places that each one of these levels takes you, like upside down and underneath and through and around all of these cool levels. Astrobot is great. I have been talking about it all year. I'll probably keep talking about it next year as they continue to put more stuff into it. And it's great. If you have a way to play it, you really, really should. It is as good as you've heard. All right, Nimp, number 2.
Number 2 for me is Metaphor ReFantazio.
Yeah.
Boy, I was not expecting to like this game as much as I did.
Yep.
Not that there wasn't anything that I was seeing that would make me think I wouldn't enjoy this game, I just didn't think I would get all the way into it, is my thing.
Right.
I spent 70 some odd hours, 80 hours in this game, and it did not feel like it. Starting out the story, like maybe the first hour or two was slow, and then it kind of starts to pick up faster. And I was kind of getting to the point where it's like I would come home from work and I would play like 15, 45 minutes of the game, like as much as I could get in. And like, all right, cool. Now I have to stop. I want to know what the next story beat is, but I have to stop here because I got other things I need to do. And that was pretty much how I played this game until like the weekend would come in, and I get all my crap done like Thursday, Friday, so that Saturday all I had to do was go grocery shopping and I could sit at home and play Metaphor all day.
Right.
Because that's just what I wanted to do. I absolutely love the job system in this game, the archetypes.
Yeah.
The way that they have it set up so that way if you find an archetype that you really like playing as, or you're finding one that's really effective in whatever dungeon you're in, even if it's maxed out, you don't have to switch to a different archetype. You're not losing out on experience, because every time you hit 1,000 experience points in that archetype, it turns that 1,000 into an item, and you can use that item on any other archetype for any other player.
So good.
It's really great. Especially grinding towards the end of the game, where there was like certain passive skills that I needed for bosses to help prevent status effects. I didn't want to switch out of the archetype that I was using because it was really effective in the dungeon that I was grinding. So I just used that, maxed out like 4 or 5 different archetypes for 4 of my characters, got everything I needed, and I was able to continue on with the boss fight, like, you know, after 8 hours of grinding.
Right.
So it's fun that it gives you that option, and you're not being hindered because you enjoy a certain archetype or a certain way that you were playing this game.
Right.
And the fact that you can move certain skills and passives to any of them, and as you get further in the game and you get your social skills up higher, you start to unlock more things that you can bring over. So like your archetype will get its main skill set that it unlocks, but then you'll get 4 additional spots that you can put active or passive skills in. So it's like you can really break this game wide open. It does still have the mostly Persona timer of, hey, there's events happening, you do a thing, the day moves forward kind of thing. I didn't feel that it was unfair. I didn't feel like I was being rushed.
Right.
There were times where it was kind of annoying, where it's like, oh crap, I don't have anything to do in the afternoon, but the thing that I want to do, it has to be nighttime, so I kind of have to burn this afternoon so I can get to this other thing. But that didn't happen a whole lot. There was usually something that I wanted to do, or something that I discovered that I wanted to do in those time frames. So I didn't really feel it was that bad. The only thing I kind of hated about this game is that you can't cook unless your walker is moving around.
Oh, weird.
If you're not traveling on it, you can't cook at all.
Huh.
So that was weird, especially when you get holed up at an inn, and you know the person who owns it, and you help them cook. So you would think they would let you use their kitchen
Right.
to cook things, but whatever. I really enjoyed the cast of characters. I enjoyed how they were all completely different, and they all had completely different backgrounds for the most part. I also liked how this wasn't necessarily a blue sky game. Not that I have any issues with that, but there was definitely parts where it's like, oh wow, this just got kind of dark, or the story that we're being told isn't something you would normally kind of see, especially with this kind of rating of a game. But outside of that, like I had an absolute blast of this time, and whether that was because of our current social and political environment,
Right.
or, you know, maybe that helped me think maybe there could be a better,
Right.
a better thing happening. But I don't know, Metaphor ReFantazio is a really, really good game. And I've heard nothing but positive from everyone who's even touched these games. People who normally don't even play JRPGs.
Yeah, this
So
is one of my big regrets this year, is not getting enough time into it. I think I have a handful of hours into it, and it is immediately really good and a very, very different game. And I think we talked about this a lot on Pup RPG Love, that if you have been interested in Atlas games, especially the Persona games, but you're maybe not drawn to the high school setting, this is probably the game for you. It's a very similar type of game, but without the. It has like a more adult political setting as opposed to a high school sort of thing. So.
And the music.
Oh, so
My
good.
God, the music
Never misses. Yeah.
Yep.
Moon, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is a short hike.
Yeah, another game club classic.
Yeah. It's not ideal. Like the camera angle on it can be a little bit iffy at times,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a no punishment. Wander around the island, get some golden feathers, build some sandcastles, promote someone to the mayor of Sand City, that kind of stuff.
All the usual stuff.
The usual stuff. It was it's a wake up call that I unfortunately cannot accept the call part of it, because it's like, yo, maybe getting away from everything for a while is actually kind of what you need to do every now and again. Like reconnecting with people, like enjoying time spent with people. And like it's got one of my favorite soundtracks like this year,
So
easily.
good.
And like, again, go listen to the Game Club episode. I will say it again here, but Snow, Lots of Snow might be one of my favorite individual pieces of music, like period, for the history of video games. It's right up there for me with the Red Alert intro music. Like,
Yeah.
it's in my head. Like I re-listened to the song like a couple of days ago, and it just brought all of the feelings of the game back to me, and it was just like, yeah, Short Hike is absolutely incredible. Like,
so good.
It came out last year, but we played it this year, so I don't care. It's going on
Yep.
number 2 because like it was fun, it was elegant, it has a bunch of stuff that you can choose not to do in it if that's the way you want to go. And I enjoyed every moment I played with it, and again, it's a game that genuinely touched me on a couple of different levels.
Yeah, ditto.
So my number 2, A Short Hike. Go listen to the Game Club episode. Boston.
My number 2, Animal Well. I didn't talk about this game a ton on the show, but I feel like this is the one that stuck with me the most throughout the year, and it really is. It captures that same level of like puzzle discovery that I really loved in The Witness and Fez, of that kind of like just letting you loose in a world and just you have to figure it out and you have to solve these puzzles, and peeling back layer over layer of puzzles of like, oh, there's nothing in this room, like why do you have me going through this room, and then 4 or 5 later you're like, oh, there's nothing in the room, oh, okay, and you're like peeling back more and more of it. I love the graphical style. I love this kind of like Commodore 64 ZX Spectrum sort of homage that the game has. It controls super well. The puzzles are so good. Just one of those games where you're going through and like, that puzzle was pretty cool. And you get to another puzzle and like, oh, that was pretty creative. And then a couple hours later, you're like, yeah, I need a notebook for this one. All right, hold on. I gotta go back through this game and start writing stuff down. I wish that there was more for me to talk about it. So much of it is unfortunately a spoiler, but I think I loved getting each individual thing in this game where you're like, why did they give me a slinky? Like, what the hell am I going to use that for? And then you discover and you're like, oh, okay. And you find out there's a whole bunch of rules around each one of these tools that you have. And you can use them in like 2 or 3 ways, and then there's always a couple of different ways to use them that kind of break the game open a little bit in really interesting ways. Um, there are, the main thing of the game is there are these 4 flames you have to go gather, so it's essentially the 4 corners of the map. Getting to all of those is super interesting. The one where like the ghost dog is chasing you, it's like one of the most intense things I've played this year. Of like, you need to learn this area by heart and get it down and absolutely nail it on the run you're going to do it, because there's almost no room for error, in a way that feels really rewarding. Of like, all right, I made it 2 more screens further than last time, I've got this. Like, and then you get to the next screen after that and you're like, nope, I don't have this, I don't remember how to do this puzzle. Nope, okay, I got it, let me try that next one. And just I love games like this where you're presented with puzzles that are small and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and more complex, and encompass more of the game as you continue to go. Of like, oh, that was cool, this area is neat, and it's like, oh, okay, but now there's this shortcut system. Oh, okay, there's more stuff for that. Oh, I'm collecting these eggs, what does that do? Oh, it does this thing. And like, there are how many eggs, I'm sorry? And like, getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more interesting as it goes. I still haven't even fully finished the game. I haven't collected all of the eggs to go see the proper ending. But I loved the ending that you got. I loved, especially loved the thing you unlocked when you got the regular ending. It's so good. And if you love puzzles and if you love puzzle games, you really should go check out Animal Well. It's really, really good. And if you love the joy of discovery, and I didn't even play this like I played Fez, where the internet's discovering it at the same time. I kind of kept sticking with it and discovered it by myself, and I think that's the stuff that helped me so much here in Animal Well. It's so good, and it probably would have been my number one if it wasn't for my number one, which is a heck of a thing for a puzzle game. So my number 2 is Animal Well. Let's hit our number 1. Nimp, what's at the top of your list?
My number 1 game for 2024 is Stellar Blade.
Oh, nice.
I absolutely loved this game. Number 1, release day 1, not broken.
True.
The day
true.
one, yeah, the day 1 patch that came out for it was just to tighten up some of the combat inputs, because some people thought that they were a little loose.
Mm-hmm.
Every update that they've had for this game was either to fix like lip sync that some people, or to add lip syncing for other languages, or it was just to add costumes. Like,
Right.
there have been so many free costumes for this stupid game. The story I really enjoyed with it. I want it, without spoiling anything, I've done all 3 endings. I'm curious on what 2 of the endings could branch off to be. The third one was kind of just a, okay, yeah, this is what happens, end of game kind of thing. But there's one specific costume that you get at one of the endings that I am super annoyed that you cannot unlock, because it looks so awesome.
Oh,
and
man.
I want it so bad. But just the fact that this is Shift Up's, is it Shift Up? Yeah.
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, this is their first real console release.
Mm-hmm.
And it only came out on PS4, and I believe it came out on Steam eventually, or is planned to be. But it just released without any issues in this day and age of games that just release and are broken. The fact that the combat felt great. I absolutely loved how some of the enemies were just stupid difficult, even on the easier settings later on. Because I platinumed this game, which is why it's number 1 right now. But that's usually what puts games in top 3 for me. But not only did I platinum it, I even ran like the boss rush mode so that I could get all the extra costumes in there. I ran it on all the extra difficulties so I could get all the extra costumes from that. Like, I just kept running through this game, and I kept getting through it so much faster every time because it had New Game Plus, which was something that the day 1 patch had added. So I kept all my skills and abilities, and I knew where everything was at, so I could just start blowing through the game and just having a blast with it. The fact that there's no microtransactions is another huge thing, considering how a lot of these costumes would mostly just be that.
True.
There is Nier DLC that just came out, like
Right.
I think last month.
Right.
I have not picked that up yet because there is supposed to be additional DLC later on that is supposed to have more story in it. So right now, if I bought the Nier DLC, I would just be buying it to have it. It doesn't add. There's a little bit of story, or not story. There's a little bit of game stuff that it adds to it, but not a whole lot more. So I am just waiting for a reason to go back and just play more of this game, and I am super hyped for there to be a sequel. It sounds like that they are primed to do a sequel, and I am super happy and would be more than willing to be their day one for it.
Nice.
So Stellar Blade is a fantastic game. I understand it. A lot of people have issues with TNA in this game. That is not just what this game is. It does have it. There are costumes that flaunt it more than others. There are a lot of I ran around in a bear suit for most of the game the first time through.
I mean, it is also an actual video game, like contrary to kind of how the internet treated it this year.
Yeah, and it is an absolute fantastic game, and I would highly recommend it. It's even if you're not big into Souls game, because I would say it's like a super light Souls game, if even that. So I would highly recommend Stellar Blade to anyone who just wants to play an action game. And it looks absolutely gorgeous on the PlayStation. So Stellar Blade is my number one.
All right, Moon, what is your number one?
Speaking of not light Souls games, my number one is Lies of P.
Nice.
Yeah, nice.
Did you know that in the start of this year, I put 73 hours into Lies of P?
Oh, jeez.
I don't even know what my hour count is for that game, but it is well worth it.
Like, it's hard to put into words the surprise of Lies of P, because it's one of those games where, like, you saw screenshots of it and you saw, like, some gameplay and you're like, okay, it looks great. But it's a Souls, like, come on.
And a Pinocchio Souls, like, come on, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, that was the thing.
Pinocchio?
When everyone called it that, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be weird. But
And, like, it turns out they have their own systems. They have their own weapon system where you break apart the weapons and put them back together differently, so you can have the effect of the blade, but the attack pattern of the handle. So if you get used to an attack pattern, you can just change that out and change how you attack. It's shockingly good storytelling. Its soundtrack is immense.
Oh my god, the soundtrack.
It looks incredible. It plays super incredibly well. I don't like the fact that it's all parry based. Like, that was my big thing. It's more of a, from what I understand, it's more of a Bloodborne than a Souls-like, or a Bloodborne-like than a Souls-like. Never played Bloodborne, so I don't know. But getting that parry timing down, let me tell you, when I faced the King of Puppets for the third time on New Game Plus Plus, and I beat him, I legitimately yelled with joy from my couch, because some of those bosses are incredibly difficult, and the game does have its flaws.
Those stupid clowns.
Oh, 100%. Like the clown mini bosses. It has these difficulty spikes where it's just like, oh, you're used to DPS checks in Vampire Survivors. Let me just do a quick skill check for you and see how you're doing so far in this game.
Right.
Spoiler alert, you're never as good as you think you are. Like, the game is just impressive on every single front. And then you beat the game and you get that secret ending, the little cutscene at the end, and you're just like, oh boy. Stuff just got real.
Super excited for whatever that is going to end up being.
Yeah, like it's unreal. The tease that they end it with is just so good, and like the fact that they loop all of the Pinocchio lore into it as well is just it is great. It plays well, it feels great, it looks fantastic. It's one of my biggest surprises of the end of last year into this year. and it's just a really great game.
Yeah.
Yep. And the 73 hours is why it wasn't on my game of the year list last year.
Right.
Because that's just this year.
Yeah.
That doesn't even include last year's time playing
Yeah.
it too.
That stupid final boss was probably 65 of those 78, you know?
Yeah. Your two big skill checks are the King of Puppets and the final boss. Like,
Yeah.
those two are unreally difficult. Like, you best be ready to parry, and parry a lot.
Yeah.
And parry, like, do the parry chains. Like, get used to the rock band. Do parry, 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 pause, pause, parry, parry, pause, parry. The game is hard, and it's so good, and I absolutely adored it. So my number one is Lies of P.
My number one, there can only be one answer to this. It's Balatro. Ba 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 ba.
Yup.
Squeedledee.
Number
ba, ba,
Number 9 on my list, for the
yeah,
record.
it couldn't be
fall
anything.
in line with the rest of the sheeple.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I couldn't be anything else.
The rest of the Jokers, dude.
Oh, it was right there. It's the only game it could have been this year. It was number one with a bullet. It wasn't even written with pencil as soon as I played it. It is as good as people were talking about when the demo came out. It's a poker roguelike that's kind of neither of those things. Like, it really isn't. I know a lot of people are still saying, like, well, I don't know how to play poker, so I can't play Balatro. That's not really... You don't have to worry about that, because it's not really a poker game. It technically is like a card roguelike. But everything about it is just pixel perfect. The one song that's in the game is one of the biggest earworms in the video game industry, hands down. And like the 3 or 4 kind of mutations it has. Every Joker is interesting. Every run is interesting. Getting those overpowered runs. Moon and I talk about this in We Roguelike It a lot, of just like, it feels great when a roguelike will let you break it. And getting those runs of just like, wait, I wonder if I can... let me try that. And over the next couple of rounds, you're just like, oh, okay, I set that all up, and Balatro let me do that, and I'm now getting like exponential numbers and destroying this game. That continually feels great, not only from like a gameplay perspective, from a design perspective, from a sound effect perspective. Just hearing those numbers like bink, 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 and then just get faster and faster as it takes longer to do it. Oh, the flames!
Like when it does the flames on the total, and it's just like, yeah, I did it.
Yeah, I beat this round real good. It's just, if you've played Balatro this year, you already know. And if you haven't played Balatro, you've probably heard people say it's an incredible game that you just need to go try. And the number of people that have been trying it, I see it a lot on both Twitter and Blue Sky. Someone will post, they'll say like, this card game, this like poker game got nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards. What's stupid? Let me give this dumb thing a try. And then like 3 hours later, it always comes back and it's like, I get it now. Like, that's very much the thing of like, you play Balatro, you get through the tutorial, you're like, yeah, that's pretty good. And you get that one run where you're like, yeah, I get it. I get it. It could only be Balatro this year for me. Moon, what are you had this pretty low on your list. How'd you feel about Balatro this year?
Honestly, the only reason why it was low on my list is because like it was one of those games that came out at a time that was just unfortunate for me. So like I didn't get the chance to delve in as deeply as I would like to, and probably it would have grabbed me just as much as it grabbed everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But it was coming to me at a time when like all of this other stuff is going around in my head, and for like personal reasons and that kind of stuff. So I didn't have the time to sit there and think and plan and do that kind of like roguelike game. I still have it installed. I'm pretty sure I bought it. All that kind of stuff. So it's still there waiting for me. It's just I need to be in a different headspace, I think, for it to at least to let it get its hooks into me.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the presentation and everything about it is incredible. I just was it felt like a slog to me at the time,
Yeah.
rather than an easy breezy kind of thing.
And that's been one of the hard parts of 2024 I have found has been we had hundreds and hundreds of incredible games come out this year, and I'm genuinely not exaggerating. Like the number of games that I played for a little bit of time or I have on my giant list of games I can't forget about this year that are all like 10 out of 10 killer games that I either am like don't have the time for, I'm not mentally ready for, or I just can't make time for in my schedule because I'm playing 5 other 10 out of 10 games at the same time. Like, and that's not even stuff that I'm playing for the show here because we're, every month, Moon and I are playing 2 games that we don't even talk about on the show for We Roguelike It and Game Club. So, like, we're just played a metric ton of games, but this year I don't want to bring it down too much, but this year has been really hard for a lot of big and small reasons, and games have been great, and games are always great at being there and helping, but the realities of it is, money is tighter, time is tighter,
We don't do this full time as well.
Right.
Like people will, if you're just listening to this, you need to understand that like Nimp and I have full-time jobs. Boston is a stay-at-home dad, which is a full-time job. Like we all do this for quote-unquote fun.
Right. Yeah. So it's one of those years where like there's been a lot. It's been nice to see that there's so many games that have grabbed each one of us, and we have like those games where it's like, yeah, all I played this year was Helldivers 2, or all I played this year was Balatro, or I found 50 incredible indie games this year, and I loved all of them. It makes me happy to see that a lot of years we have so much of our lists are completely different, except for Nimp and I completely aligned on 2 games this year. But like, it makes me happy to see that we're playing so much stuff that really genuinely did click with us. All right, so that's our top 10 list this year. We're going to do a real quick wrap up here. I want to turn the mic over to each of my co-hosts here in turn to wrap up the year, wrap up however they want to, say whatever you want to say as kind of our final missive of 2024. I will start with you, Nimp.
All right, well, I just want to say that this year, despite the world trying to off itself, has been a very interesting year for video games. Like you were saying, just in the last 2 months alone, there's been like 9 major games.
Yeah.
That I want to play and just can't get to. But it's an embarrassment of riches. Between last year, this coming year, there's a ton more that's coming out. There's a lot to look forward to. As Vinny Caravella always says, it's never been a better time to play video games.
That's right.
But really, I want to thank you, Boston, for hosting this. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you two, especially in the pre-show.
Yep.
Pre-show, we've talked about a lot of weird and interesting things throughout the year.
Outcast gets real weird.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just the community too. I've enjoyed playing with a lot of you guys out there. I've enjoyed talking with a lot of you. I am not a very social person at all. This podcast is the most talking I do in a week. As a lot of people can probably tell by my ending sentences of so and ums. But yeah, that's all. I'm looking forward to doing it again. And I just, everyone be safe out there.
Yep.
Find your favorite Blue Sky game and just snuggle up with it.
That's right. Moon, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, like Nim said, it's been a year. It's been a couple of years. It's been a decade. It's been a lifetime of slowly devolving late-stage capitalism to, nightmarish states that we're in these days. To steal a phrase from a different Nextlander person, the product is great. The people, not so much. Like, support the people who are making these things that we love and celebrate so much. Like, Finding the time has been difficult. Hopefully, I've only got another 8 months of that ahead of me. Fingers crossed. Another $1,500 bill doesn't hit my door in January.
That's right.
It already has. Let me say March, because I already have my January and February $1,500 bills sorted.
Right.
Not sorted, but expecting. It's tough. We've talked about it before. Like, you'll probably hear me talk about this on the Game Club episode as well. This is a job. Whether if you're listening to this, you need to understand, like, this is essentially another full-time job that we all do. Like, making time to play games, making time to write notes about games, watch TV shows, as me and Nim do. Like, officially, we've been on break for 2 weeks at this point, or we can change at this point. Me and Nim still have another recording to go after we finished here,
right.
because we had to jump a schedule around. So we all do this, and we all sacrifice time, effort, energy, whatever it is. Like Nim said, Boston does it more than any of us. He's the one who, like, covers the hosting. He's the one who covers, that kind of stuff. We're not a patron with 70,000 people all donating $50,000 a year or whatever.
Please go do that. Like, don't let me stop you.
Yeah, don't let me saying this stop you from doing that.
Yeah.
But, like, this is it can be tough, and I've talked about it on the past 2 weeks of the last 2 real episodes. Like, my foot is off the gas right now because I'm burnt out. I'm done. I'm fed up of everything. I want to go into the break. I want to take the break, not think about anything for a while, and come back hopefully refreshed and revitalized. Really excited about Critical Misses at the start of the year next year. Go check out production meetings on the Patreon if you want to talk about that. Patreon.com/E1M1.
The ones are numbers.
Thank you. But most of the thank yous go to Boston. Like,
appreciate that.
He edits, he posts, he does all that kind of stuff. If you're listening to this and you're in the Discord, send a thank you his way. Like, he deserves it. We all do. He especially does.
You should see how many bananas documents I send these guys.
100%. I'm like, you want to see the state of my OneNotes for Wayward Sons alone? Like, my note pages for that are literally crazy. And that's just for one show. And between all of us, we do like 6 or something like that.
It's
so like, it's
but
been
on the plus
fun.
side, everyone gets our honest opinions on dumb things.
It's true. I mean, that's true. I literally bought energy drinks because this idiot mentioned them. Like, I have a case of the iced tea energy drinks waiting for me
there you go.
upstairs.
I've got 3 more to show for pre-show.
There you go.
That aren't those.
I don't know. It's been games have been great. The market is not great. The constant literal layoffs of every year, we're just getting more and more layoffs, and CEOs are making more and more money, and developers are losing their jobs more and more, and you've got the AI talk coming in and trying to take over everything else, and it's just like, enough. Like, let's go back to a simpler time, please. I'm not saying cartridges. I'm saying pay people what they're worth.
That's right.
Including us. Go over to Patreon.
And you say a more civilized age, maybe.
Hey, don't. That's someone else's podcast. Wait a minute.
Someone else's show.
Yeah, I love you all so longer.
We're here to promote our show.
That's right.
Like, the games are great. It's just my life is hell.
Yeah.
Like, that's the key turnaround right now. Is like trying to find the time and the effort and the energy. The energy is the tough one sometimes to do it, but we still do it because we all like doing it, and because we all like hearing from community members and it happened with the Patreon open house. Someone sent me an app message and brought something up. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about because I record like 9 things.
Right. I don't remember that. I'm sorry.
Can I get some clarification on some context on what this involves? I love getting that kind of message. I love sending out a message in the LFC or LFG, and that's my soccer club, LFC, and the LFG, and everyone jumping in. I love the anniversary stream we did for Lethal Company this year. That was so much fun.
That was a blast.
Like, it's just, it's tough, but at times it's worth it. And now I need to go and take a nice deserved break.
A 2-week nap.
Yes. Well, 1.5 weeks for me, but yes.
That's right.
What about you?
Yeah, I, it's always hard wrapping up the year for especially this show because it's this, like Moon said, it's the thing we try and remind people. It's not meant to be a downer, but this show and all of the shows are work. It's not just I roll out of bed and I turn on my camera and a show just appears. It's
Yeah, we're not Twitch streamers.
That's
We're
right.
content producers.
Got him. It's multiple days throughout the week. It is staying on top of this stuff. It's writing the Honkers Bonkers show notes I write every week, which get more unhinged as the year progresses. And it's trying to wrangle all this stuff. And as we always say, it is a job, but I really do love doing this show. I have been doing this show every single week for the last 17 years. And it's
Except for one. You missed one.
no,
You
I was
won.
on I
You
was
missed
on that
one.
one. Don't you worry.
For like 2 seconds.
Hey man, my streak is unbroken. But it's a lot of work and I've been doing it for almost half of my life. I turned 43 this year. And it's hard. It is hard to find the time to do all of this stuff. Like Moon and I say, we are at the red line for the amount of content we can create unless some mysterious benefactor gives us $50,000.
Hey, that's a different show again.
That's what. Oh, no.
Stop promoting a different show.
Some generous benefactor gives us like $50,000 a month so I can hire these two dudes to do this stuff full time. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I love doing this show as we are racing towards episode 900. I feel like
Still ad free.
that's right, ad free. We don't even take keys from publishers or stuff, largely because we just don't have time to check out half of this stuff. But I still feel like I started yesterday. Like I and a large part of it is the two guys I have here sitting with me that are my friends talking video games every week. It is the world's best community on the internet. We have an incredible community from all over the world. Everybody's great in Discord. We love our captive audience as well. Big shout outs to them. The number of people that say they have gotten out and listened to the show and all of our shows throughout the week is still incredible. So big shout outs. And I come in here almost every week really looking forward to doing it. And somebody's going to say almost, and I'll say, yeah, some weeks I really don't want to, but one of the things that they're sort of fallen out of favor, but Penny Arcade early on posted that one of the biggest reasons for the success was consistency. And that's one of the things that I really stuck to heart was like, if I was going to start this show, if I was going to bring people on the show, if I'm going to bring new people on the show, you have to do it every week. Life happens, and there are going to be times where we just can't, or things are going on, or I lost power, I got sick.
One of us takes a break.
Yeah, like one of us wants to take a break. That stuff happens, but we do really strive for that level of consistency, and I think it's one of the things that I really do love about the show, and I do love it, and I am so ready to take these 2 weeks off. But about a week and a half in, I'm going to get really itchy and really want to get back to doing this show. So I want to thank these two guys with me. I want to thank Musim for doing the game club. And Picking Up the Pixels, RPG Love. Can't forget that. I want to thank all of our patrons. Everybody has been consistently very generous. You cover all of the hosting for this stuff. That stuff just continues to get more expensive. And I really just want to thank everybody who listens and watches and chats on the live stream and everything. All of you. I would probably still be doing this show if it was just me in my office talking, but we wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for the community, and a community of just the kindest, the best, the funniest people out there. that
Mhm.
are incredible. So
Also,
Uh,
people who get us,
mhm.
like
Yep.
we know our brands are strong because every time something important to one of us happens, the community is right there with an at and a post in the Discord, being like, "Yo,
Hmm.
hey
Yo, check
Moon,
this out.
Dune, at Moon, Dune,
Yeah.
Dune."
Yeah, it is really. I know we say it a lot, and I know sometimes it seems like it comes off as a joke, but we really do love our community, and we really do appreciate everybody listening to the show. We're certainly not the biggest show out there, and that has never bothered me. But everybody who listens has been very dedicated and very kind and very gracious, and we really do appreciate it. So, I think 2024 was great. From this show's perspective, I think we put out some incredible stuff across all of our shows, and we were really firing on all cylinders this year. And I'm like Nip said, I'm really looking forward to next year. So I think 2025 is going to be just as good, if not better, and that's really all I can ask for. So thank you again, everyone, for listening. Thank you for taking the trip on these 2 Game of the Year episodes. I know we tried something a little bit different this time. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Oi.
Bye.